First of all, let's have a look at those prominent trends. Where are we right now in terms of the fashion supply chain? So I think the first thing to note is that the consumer is absolutely at the forefront of anything that happens within fashion supply chain. And brands are increasingly putting the consumer at the center of their business and building strategies around the consumer. And when we talk about the consumer, obviously the consumer is not one homogeneous, one-size-fits-all consumer. It's a very stratified market, and there's a lot of shifting going on within that. So what is driving some of those shifts? Well, the first one is geographic. The days of lifestyle brands producing footwear, apparel, accessories in factories in Asia, shipping that finished product to America or the US or Australia, and it being that kind of one-way supply chain. Those days are very much over. So the growth, consumer growth, is taking place in markets such as China, Southeast Asia, India as well. There are new pockets of growth all around the world, which are complementing the more developed markets. And actually the rate of growth in some of the emerging markets is a lot higher. So, there's very much a requirement for brands to capture that growth, and also to capture the growth in those younger demographics. The brands need to reach out to those emerging markets and build consumer relationships in those emerging markets. Sales channels are also leading another part of the shift. So it's not a new story that e-commerce is growing largely in terms of apparel, footwear sales. That's not new, but what is new is that the accelerative effect of the last year. So the pandemic, the COVID situation, has seen a huge increase in e-commerce. And, for any brand which is not working with a e-commerce direct-to-consumer strategy as a major part of their brand outreach is really missing the boat in that respect. There is significant growth there. And of course, there are challenges that come with that around handling returns, etc. But, no doubt that e-commerce is where a lot of the growth is at. And at the same time, a relative reduction in the channel share of the traditional wholesale market is something that we're also seeing with branded apparel, footwear, and of course fashion. Another element of changing consumer demand is who buys what and for what purpose. I think one way of illustrating this is the whole athleisure trend. So the athleisure category has expanded enormously and continues to do so. And particularly with more home working and flexible working, I think we'll continue to see a decline in the more formal wear market, the formal workwear, the suiting, the ties, the formal shoes. This type of thing is losing out to a more smart casual and athleisure wear sector. So the consumer spend in terms of what they're buying for what purpose is changing as well. Okay, number 2 on here is the growth of multi-sourcing. So we have seen that the share that China has in footwear and apparel sourcing has been decreasing over the years. That's not new, and there's a number of factors driving that. So the capability and expertise in different sourcing markets has made it easier for brands to diversify their sourcing. We expect that trend to continue, but China will remain a dominant provider in many categories. In terms of footwear, Vietnam and Cambodia, I think we'll continue to see growth there. If we look at apparel, the main growth story there is more around Bangladesh. And we continue to see a lot of brands shifting their sourcing to Bangladesh. Other markets, Myanmar, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, there is growth there, albeit it's relatively more depending on the final destination of the finished goods. In terms of emerging origins, Africa, Ethiopia continues to be popular, and we see other markets as well. Kenya coming on a little bit, Egypt and other places. In terms of nearshoring, Morocco and Turkey remain popular for Europe. For the US, of course, there is sourcing out of Latin America. Albeit we haven't seen that scale up to any significant level. But generally, there are more options than ever open to brands in terms of sourcing origins. And this is a subject which Edith will touch on a bit in her presentation as well. Some of the other large trend, of course, is around sustainability. And this is really, almost every year it becomes a bigger factor in terms of a bigger factor in consumer behavior and consumer choice, particularly for the younger demographic. They're a lot more aware of the sustainability topic. And also from a regulatory point of view, there will be from a regulatory point of view, there'll be more focus on this within the supply chain as well. Okay, so there's some of the main trends. Let's have a look at some of the main challenges which fashion brands, footwear, apparel brands are seeing right now. So what you're seeing on the screen here is a summarized feedback from a survey done by the Economist Intelligence Unit. And this is looking at a whole range of factors, but the top three you can see: high fluctuation in customer demands, lack of flexibility allowing quick reaction to changes, and then meeting customer expectations. These are all very much linked to consumer behavior and the speed at which consumer behavior is changing. Now, as a brand, there are things which are within your control and there are things which are outside of your control. I think it's fair to say that we're not going to be able to control consumer behavior fully. That's going to continue to evolve and change rapidly. But what you are able to control as a brand is your control around your supply chain, your control around how you handle information in your business to enable you to take the necessary quick decisions to react to some of these changes. So what we're going to have a look at now is a closer look at how brands are facing up to some of these challenges and how technology can be used to enable that. And I'd like to hand over now to Richard Heiss, who is going to talk us through that.
Great, thank you, James, and good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today, sharing some insights into how to face these trends, and also to share how companies can use technology as an enabler of change to adapt to these trends. So let's get into it. In a Gartner recent agenda poll, it was clear that technology enablement was one of on many people's minds. But the problem with visibility is that it's not on its own the solution. Only if you make sense of the data in an appropriate time frame can you use it to derive these actionable insights. Well, the good news is that technology has really advanced in recent years, with real use cases materializing at scale in the supply chain. So, for example, many companies still struggle to create a decent forecast on a monthly basis. Now, with new technology, this can be done on a daily basis with a much higher level of accuracy. In addition, as logistics practitioners, another question we should all be asking ourselves is whether our teams will need a new set of skill sets in the future, such as perhaps data science or engineering. More and more of the traditional roles will become automated by technology. So moving beyond the digital issue, many of our customers are increasingly prioritizing around three key levers: collaboration and transparency, as companies look to look more end-to-end, from planning all the way through to store allocation, which is driving far greater cross-departmental process integration. Obviously, technology is an enabler to correlate multiple data points, which allow for better decision-making. And lastly, clearly, resilience and flexibility, which has only been further highlighted during this period of COVID, where production supply chains have been disrupted, and as much as custom supply chains. And we can see that there's been an accelerated shift to both new and online sales channels, disrupting our traditional markets. However, given the complexity and scale of the sourcing and production processes, these incremental steps don't go far enough. We have to think bigger. To be successful, companies need a holistic approach driven from the top that brings together strategy and execution, plus a genuine desire to collaborate with other functions across the supply chain to break down the silos, and understanding that supply chains require realignment. Technology is often seen as the solution for all of our industry issues, but technology alone cannot solve key issues relating to visibility and to transparency. The combination of transparency, control, and business integration is what brings the real transformational power through. If we're to forge systemic change, a broader program of collaboration is needed, where different parties work together, and technology is simply the enabler to make it happen. So, before discussing how to prepare for the shift into a more integrated supply chain, I wanted to put this journey into a little bit of context, and to use that, I'm going to use the Gartner five-stage logistics maturity model, which is generally recognized as a market-leading model. And I think it helps people to understand a little bit better in terms of where they are in this developmental journey. So in the model, stage one is characterized by more reactive and siloed logistics activities, being more manual and disconnected with significantly less standardization. And then as we progress into stage two, the logistics activities start to become more centralized, and standardization across the organization then provides more functional scale and efficiencies. About 70% of organizations are still in stage one and stage two. That's just a reality. This is where we find that many companies find it difficult to stitch together their supply chain data in a meaningful way. Perhaps they lack the technology, they lack the willpower, maybe they just lack the knowledge to be able to do so. But the key is to really move forward into the next stages. So stage three reflects a wider integration of logistics activities to the supply chain. And we see increasingly companies working actively towards that. And then when you move into stage four, this is really a whole new world. So stage four extends collaboration beyond the organization to leverage suppliers and customers to allow for business trade-offs. This requires a mental shift from an inside-out view to a more customer-centric mindset. This means that putting your customers' needs at the center of your thinking. Stage five reflects a fully orchestrated network where the information flows across the supply chain network in real time to facilitate fact-based decisions that support growth. So let's move on to technology as an enabler for change. Combining the three components of transparency, control, and business integration is what brings the real transformational power through. So improved planning accuracy by leveraging real insights and machine learning to update and influence plans, which in turn leads to increased reliability. The next is a greater ability to predict outcomes across the supply chain, leveraging predictive techniques and algorithms. And the last one is around processes, people and infrastructure in place to direct the traffic through the supply chain dynamically in order to deliver the outcomes that you want. So let's take this one step further. What does that look like? To gain the most value from data and its insights, brands and suppliers must improve process inefficiencies by upgrading their systems to keep essentially in style. Creating value from data to actionable insights means capturing the right data at the right time and with the appropriate controls and measures to ensure its validity. Then using technology to unlock the opportunity. So what do you need to harness this data in your supply chain and to drive actionable insights? Well, firstly, in our current environment, there are many data sources. In many end-to-end shipments, there can be up to 15 or 17 different actors involved. It's therefore essential to be able to easily connect them all together. And this is particularly tricky if you consider the varying degrees of digital maturity in the supply chain today. Therefore, the ability to integrate to the real world requires numerous flexible options, such as APIs and even WeChat, for example, to collect data in a timely manner from our partners at all levels. So many sources of data can be used to provide status updates and insights to better predict what will happen, but not all sources are equal in quality. So systems need to have algorithms that can select the best source, rather than selecting the one source that is the best. Then you need to collect and to harmonize the data from all actors in real time and plug and play partners as needed. Finally, the final step here is then requires sifting through all of the data using intelligent algorithms and filters and creating real-time signals that tell you how the supply chain is performing, and ideally, automatically raising notifications and exceptions. So, in summary, by creating a digital twin through which the current performance of your supply chain can be viewed, it becomes possible to take the right trade-off decisions driven by the insights provided. It means developing or leveraging this type of infrastructure allows you to drive more effective decisions in real time, while you still have a chance to impact the outcome positively. And lastly, this is how you can derive full end-to-end supply chain visibility in the context of all of your complex business processes.